Well, hi, everybody. I'm Nancy Kleinberg, the real Nancy Kleinberg, and I'd like to welcome you all here to this really amazing event, which is our All Women Dream Team 2022 event. And it'll be a conversation about running for office as a woman in Pennsylvania. And I'd like to begin our introductions by telling you about Nina Ahmed. Nina is a candidate for the Pennsylvania Democratic State Committee, and she's currently the president of Pennsylvania National Organization for Women and a former board member of National Now. She's also a former deputy mayor of Philadelphia and was the Democratic candidate for Auditor General in Pennsylvania. Nina is a strong advocate for women and communities of color, and she is and has been a catalyst for change in her service for nearly half a decade as the president of PA Now, and she's changed the landscape for women candidates in Pennsylvania.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tanya Bamford, and I'm the chairwoman of the Montgomery Township Board of Supervisors and also a candidate for a state committee. And I'm honored to introduce my soon-to-be state representative, Melissa Serrato. Melissa Serrato is the Democratic candidate for the 151st Pennsylvania House District. From 2018 to 2022, she served under State Representative Liz Hanbidge as her district director. Her job was to get results for the community when no one else could. She truly understands constituent services from the ground up, from helping to put millions of dollars in unclaimed funds back in our pockets to fighting to end a months-long backlog and get Pennsylvanians long-awaited unemployment assistance. Misty's proactive, empathetic, and solution-oriented approach means that taxpayers in our district will get the help that they need. And perhaps most critically of all, given current times, Missy is the mother of 4 girls, and she will fight tenaciously to protect their rights and the rights of all women across our state to retain control of their own reproductive destinies. Please join me in welcoming and supporting Missy Serrato.
Hi, everyone. I'm Benedina Honkai, and I would like to introduce my friend, Rochelle Colbert, who's the candidate for the 54th Pennsylvania House Legislative District. Rochelle was the first Black woman elected president of Norristown Borough Council, where she instilled fiscal responsibility, prevented municipal bankruptcy, paved roads, and built parks. Now she has the most comprehensive platform of any candidate in the race. Help me in welcoming Rochelle Colbert, and I hope you would vote for her if you haven't already voted. Thank you. Meet Jill Denning, candidate for the 24th PA Senate District, I'm sorry. Jill is a former school teacher like me and school board director. She will fight for property tax reform, help address community infrastructure issues like stormwater maintenance, traffic and road quality, and open space. Jill will be a strong voice for all those who have been left behind by Harrisburg and prioritize community over Harrisburg special interests. Please help me in welcoming Jill Denning, and I hope you all vote for her. Thank you.
Hey. Hi, everybody. My name is Dottie Miller. I currently serve as the vice chair of the Southeast Caucus. It's the Pennsylvania State Democratic Committee. I also am on the board of directors and treasurer for MCDWLI, which is the Women's Leadership Initiative in Montgomery County. I'd like to introduce to you Nancy. Meet Nancy Gunst, state representative and candidate for the 152nd District. Nancy is a fighter who felt a calling to public service and ran for Hatboro Borough Council, the governing body for her hometown that has been controlled by Republicans for decades. She won and served 2 terms before running for mayor and becoming the first female mayor in Hatboro's history in 2017. Her platform and record of service over the last 2 years stand as an example for all legislators to follow. Thank you.
And finally, I'd like to introduce Alexandra Wisser, candidate for the 147th Pennsylvania House District. Alex understands the issues people from all generations are facing. From families with young children to senior citizens, all residents can count on her to be their voice in the House. Her platform highlights the voices of her opponent has long been ignoring the environment, working families, and seniors. Please join me in welcoming and supporting Alex Wisser.
Thank you so much, Tanya, and everyone who made these introductions. It is such a pleasure to be here. What an amazing idea at Dream Team 2022, which I believe started with Dr. Bernadine Honkai, who started thinking about this and bringing us all together. It is my pleasure to moderate today with a few questions that everybody will respond to. It's not very structured. We might go in different direction based on the answers we get. We just want you to have a real flavor of these warriors who are fighting for democracy, who are here today, who have taken the plunge and are running for office. As they say, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, and these women are going to be at the table. So I'm very pleased to be here and start off with the first question. How has your experience as a female candidate shaped your outlook on running for public office? And what unique challenges do women face when preparing to run and then actually running? So we'll take whoever amongst our candidates would like to address that. We'll start with one of you.
Hello, thank you all so much for coming. I am Missy Melissa Serrato, and I am running in the 151st. I decided to run for this position when I was broached, and I have always felt that when the need is there, I am willing to step up and help my community. And the need has never been more so than it is today. We are seeing our rights stripped of Pennsylvanians more and more each session, each bill that comes forward. Having worked for Liz for the past 4 years, I have seen exactly what dysfunction is coming out of Harrisburg. And we need to step up. We need to flip the House. There's too much at risk if we don't put the work in to get this done. This is going to be a tough race. I am against a 12-year incumbent who is considered one of the more moderate Republicans in the House at the current state. However, it is absolutely a flippable seat. It will take knocking on as many doors in our district as humanly possible and truly building relationships, having them understand that even though they've liked Todd because he's done some work for them in the past, he's gotten them some services, really hitting home that I have been that person that answers the call at a state rep's office. I have those relationships with liaisons at all the state departments. I have already worked with county and local electeds to help push through necessary changes for our community. So building those relationships is going to be of the utmost importance to me. I'm not going to come out here and say that my opponent's the worst man in the world, but he is enabling the worst people in the state house right now. That is something that we can no longer tolerate. It is too important for our community to sit silent any longer. So we are going to fight this race every step of the way. We're going to work as hard as humanly possible, and we will accomplish this goal of flipping the seat and helping to flip the Pennsylvania House. Thank you all.
I will start with Rochelle Colbert. Maybe you can start us off, since you've spent a lot of time in the legislative space, talking to a lot of legislators. So you're hitting the ground running. So maybe you can start us off with how it's been so far for you already and what it's been like running for office.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you. I'm really excited to be a part of this panel this evening. I think it's an amazing idea. All these amazing women I'm about to talk with. So my experience, I think, has been very unique because I have an opponent that's a lot younger than myself, and I was encouraged not to run many times. I was encouraged to get out the race more than I'd like to admit, because of my age and because people felt like I was out of date, and that, you know, I'd run for elective office a long time ago. And I think that I kind of felt discouraged a little bit in the beginning. But the discouragement was, you know, it was fleeting. It didn't last very long after I realized, in completing my platform and really realizing exactly who I was, and, you know, that this had been a dream of mine for my entire life since I was 16 years old. So I just had to take those naysayers and, you know, make them silent. But I do think that it was meant, you know, for discouragement. I mean, the specific things that people said, you know, about just, you know, waiting it out and, you know, giving this young person a chance. And, you know, it was just really it was hard to swallow, but I learned a lot from it, and I'm very encouraged now. I mean, now I can't be stopped. Like I can't. It's good. It was good. In my world, we say it was good that I was afflicted, because now you can't stop me, you know.
Wonderful. Listen, the more barriers you face, the more you're going to scale them. And, you know, we're a multiracial, multi-generational society. So every one of us has something to offer, regardless of what age you are, what race you are, what gender you are. So I think people who have been being the naysayers need to say everybody's, you know, competing on this playing field. So, and so should you. So I'm very glad you're running, because I just want to take a little point of privilege here that we just endorsed Rochelle Colbert from Pennsylvania now. And she has we've interviewed a lot of people for many different positions. She was one of the most well-prepared. Her questionnaire was fully answered, and she actually knew what was in a questionnaire. A lot of people don't. Other people fill that out. We were so impressed with her that the interview panel said, we have no notes to write. Just tell them, endorse her. So we did write your notes, but I have to tell you, they were very impressed with you. So we wish you very well. And I'm so glad you did not listen to all those naysayers. We'll go to Alex Wisser to see what her thoughts are on running here in her district as a woman.
Hi, thank you all so much for putting the panel together. I'm really proud to be here with all of these women. I just met Rochelle and Missy out in Harrisburg, I think actually only a month ago. It feels like about 10 years. But everyone has been incredibly supportive. And so I have to say, I've run across a lot of things that I did not anticipate. But one of the best things that I've run across that I did not realize was the support from other women. And I just have to give a shout out to Jill Denon, who has been a huge help. I'm a first-time candidate, and the amount of information and the support that she's given me has just been incredible. So that type of support is what gets you through every day, if you have any questions or anything like that. So overall, I'd have to say my experience has been very positive, but it's a learning experience every day. So I really appreciate this community a lot. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. And we'll go to our current actually elected state rep, Nancy Gantz, because she's running for re-election. She can probably shed slightly different light because she's already been in office and running again. So Nancy, the floor is yours.
How has my experience as a female candidate shaped my outlook on my program? You know, I've just always had it in me since I was a young kid about giving back to others. My parents were very politically involved in our community. My mother was actually the secretary treasurer of the Republican organization for over 25 years when they were sane individuals, not like they are today. And so I was always surrounded by politicians that were running, whose fundraisers we would hold in my backyard, and you know, so and just always helping others. So I was in the service back in the 70s, and when I came home, I decided to get more involved in my community and ran for council. I didn't really look at it as whether I was a female or male or anything. I really just don't really do that as I run. But so we just fight like hell. You know, you just have to fight like hell if you want to get elected to a position, and let people know, you know, why you're doing it and the issues that are important to you. And, you know, and I was, you know, honored to do 2 terms on council. When I was elected as the first woman to be mayor here, I didn't look at it as a male or female thing then either. I just looked at it as who was more competent. Okay. And we have to have that, you know, that thought of ourselves is that we are all competent women. We are all competent people. Okay. And we won that race. And but I did think about my gender when I was running for state rep, because I kept thinking, who can I recruit for this spot to run? I really gave that a lot of thought, because I put a lot of people up to, like, you know, council people and school board people, and I've always recruited a lot of candidates. And but I knew that it was time for the seat to flip. And because, you know, our district is more D than R for a long time, but we had a very nice man, Tom Mert, who served for 14 years. And it was kind of like the situation that you're having with Todd Stevens, Missy, is that, you know, he taught the kids soccer and he coached baseball, and, you know, people weren't listening to what his voting was on the House floor. So I lost a lot of sleep at night saying, who can I get for this? Who can I get for this? And then I sat up one day and I said, oh, crap, it's going to have to be me, because I'm a woman. I'm a veteran. I've had, you know, my good times in office with, you know, just getting a lot of work done on this end. And then I went actually, and I sat down with Tom Mert, and we met about 3 times, and I finally met him on the House floor when I was in the Capitol, and told him I was going to run for a spot. And
Okay.
that's when he had it in his head that he was going to retire. So I don't really look at the gender thing too much.
So yeah, well, thank you for that. You know, it's great that people should be evaluated on what qualities they bring to the table. But I do think the role of gender actually is important in terms of what issues women bring to the table. So there's a state rep running in the district that I live in, and she's done work on breast cancer and getting insurance companies to pay for people with dense breasts. That's Isabella Fitzgerald. She would not have had that legislation and would not have helped, you know, hundreds and thousands of women get screened and be safe from breast cancer and get early detection, but for being a woman, right? So it does matter. Why representation matters is that you bring issues that other people might not think about, whether it's whichever identity it might be. You might be a woman, you might be a person of color, you might be a Black woman, you might be a man, whatever it is. I think our lived experiences shape how and what we do with legislation. And if we're not at the table and having issues that impact us because we are women, those are not going to get in the forefront. So
We
I'm glad that you, I'm glad that you can
need
run.
more women in the General Assembly. We have to.
Absolutely. So thank you for that. I will go to Jill Denon for just responding to that question.
So first of all, I have to say, I will most likely be running against a woman, assuming I win the primary. I am running against a young man as well. It is for me not about gender. It is about commitment to the party and about work ethic and about experience. So with that being said, my opponent when I ran in the 147th was a woman, and she was a veteran. And I find that women need to do more to support other women than try to outdo other women with what whether their experience or education or whatever. I think that I went to a women's college. So when I went to that college, I specifically chose a women's college because I wanted to be with other strong women who we all were there for one goal and one goal only, was to get an education and then pursue our careers, whether that be law school or med school or PhDs or whatever. And so that really shaped who I was. And I was a political science major, and I immediately started working in DC. And my whole entire life, I've been working with, I have to say, I worked with a lot of strong women, but the women were behind the scenes. My experience in the 80s, late 80s, was that the strong women were behind the scenes, and they were the brains of the operation. And a lot of the congressional members and governors were, nice people, not the sharpest tools in the box. So my whole idea of politics and women in politics was shaped with the men. The men are good politicians. And there's people behind it that are the brains of the operation. But I do think that there is definitely, as women, number one, I feel in general, and this is obviously very generic, I think that women have to prove themselves. Just like Nancy said, she was probably looking to other men who could run. Women never think they're good enough. We think we have to be, have the PhD or show. In my case, I ran against an Army veteran. I don't think she's any more intelligent than I am. I don't think just because you're an Army veteran or a military veteran, you're going to be the best politician in the world. I mean, let's face it, she's going to vote against every reproductive right that we have. So I try not to make it a gender thing. However, I will say that my experience on the school board as a woman was what really opened my eyes, because I was the school board president, and we had very difficult men on our school board, very right-wing crazies, and I wasn't putting up with it. And so I would gavel them, I would end the meetings. When the audience would come and they would be screaming, I would suspend meetings. And I ran a really tight ship. And when I won my reelection, which was really difficult, because they said I didn't have family values because I was supporting the trans and LGBT community, I wanted to stay as the board president. And I had been the vice president and then the president. And then that year I ran, I wasn't the president. And I wanted to be the president again. And the men, and these were men who supported me, said, "Oh, Jill, you really shouldn't." And I was like, "What are you talking? Well, you've been with really tough election." And I'm just going to be honest. We need to all come together, and you're just too assertive you're just too aggressive. You're just too aggressive. And people don't like that. I was so stunned. And I thought, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. And it's mostly, 50, 60-year-old men. And I remember being with the superintendent, who I thought was very progressive. And I was the board president. And the men on the board came to this reception we were having, and he was talking to some other people, and he introduced them, and they all shook hands with each other. And I'm standing there, and I had to, just like the book says, I had to lean in, and I had to say, "Oh, and I'm Jill Dennett, I'm the board president." And he was embarrassed. But it's almost like so I think in general, women, we always have to try harder, and we're always saying we're not good enough. And I think in general, women support women more. They really do want to help other women. We work more collaboratively, which is why I think we make better representatives and political people. And I think there's a huge difference between being a politician and being and serving people in a government position.
Yes.
And my thing is that a lot of the men that I have seen, and there's some good Democratic men, and don't get me wrong, but it seems that it's more about power, ego, holding on to your seat, even though they're doing the same policies I would be doing, than as a public service. That's and that's again, very general, but that's been my experience.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that insight, that whole incident you described of not getting introduced and having to lean in. I think many of us on this panel probably can identify with that. And, this is the shared information we can give to someone who's new to this, to say, when this happens, and it's happened to us, this is what you do, and it's okay to do that. So this kind of information is really critical. We'll round out this question with Missy Serrato before we go on to the next one. Go ahead, Missy.
So I have found a very mixed bag when it comes to running as a woman. So obviously there's women on this panel right now that have been incredibly supportive and helpful, but I've also had comments that I'm too girly, that I don't seem strong enough as a human being, that I'm not tough enough to get the job done. And it's very interesting because it truly is still a man's world in some ways. If I am calling and asking for people to support my campaign with a donation, if I were a man, I guarantee you I would have a much easier time getting a donation from some of the people that I have called. I feel that as much as we as a group, we are strong, independent women, and we obviously want to support other women, I do feel that a lot of women don't necessarily hold that same value. And so overcoming that and saying, I am a mother of 4. If there is any strength in the world, I have had to balance full-time job and a house and 4 children and running an entire world. And at that point, you're going to tell me that I'm too girly because I have long hair, or that I prefer wearing dresses over pants. It's one of those where I don't feel like as a woman, we need to be categorized in a specific subset. We are all strong in our own ways, and we can all be that person without having to fit into the bubble that people think we should fit into. But I have had even Democratic elected officials make comments saying that I have a lot to prove to them before they're willing to throw their support behind me, and that kind of situation. And luckily, other strong male figureheads have stepped in and stepped up on my behalf, so that it's not, again, it's not just men or just women. I, as a woman, feel that I can balance so much more than my husband can. If you're telling
he's not listening, I hope.
No, luckily he's downstairs. One of my children already had like a huge phone battery died. It's one of those moments. But no, in reality, and he knows it, and he absolutely knows. I take care of the house, the kids, the finances. I do the budgeting, I do the bill paying, and I work full time. So, moms, women, we learn how to balance, and we're capable of accomplishing a heck of a lot when we're given the opportunity.
Absolutely. You couldn't have said it better. It's like Ginger Rogers dancing backwards in heels, right? So we know how to multitask because we have to. We do a lot of things. Our biology predicates we behave in certain ways, and we manage a lot of things. So you're absolutely correct. And I think just to finish this topic here before we go on to the next one, what you said, it's harder to fundraise as a woman, and you have to prove yourself more. These are the two takeaways, because that was true of me. I felt that. And on top of that, I'm not a white woman, so I'm an immigrant, and all those other pieces that come into play, you're suspicious of, are you going to be like one of us? Are you going to be able to do X, Y, and Z? So yes, the bar is very high, but I think this is what happens when you have more and more women, more than this 28% in our state legislature, then you're going to have more and more people think, oh, this is normal. Like, I don't have to put you through that boot camp that I wouldn't necessarily if you were the first or second or third person. So I think this really speaks to why we need more women. We're 51% of the population in Pennsylvania, and we're 28% representation. We have a long ways to go, and I thank you all for making that effort. So I'll go on to the next question. And in the interest of time, we're at 7:34. I would like you to limit your questions to answers to like 1 to 2 minutes, no more than that. And I will give you a little signal if you don't listen. So the next question is, what steps do we need to take to encourage more women to run? And how can we help them win their elections? And how can women support each other in this process? Many of you have touched on little pieces of this already, but we'll just go a little deeper dive into this, and we'll start with Alex this time. I'll just sort of mix it up and see what your thoughts are, because you're a first-time candidate, so you'll have a different lens than Nancy or some of the others, like Missy, who has been with an elected woman before. So go ahead.
Yes, this situation actually really hit me because it came up in my race. I was in a position where I found out that my opponent was going to be running unopposed in our district. So I had that whole frantic, like Nancy had said, trying to find somebody to run. We need somebody to run. We need somebody to run. And sleepless nights trying to figure it out. And eventually I sort of came to the same conclusion. I said, well, if no one else will run, I have to run and I have to make it work. But some of the people that I approached to ask them whether they would run, they have full-time jobs. They have a family that they have to support. I'm in a situation where I lost my job because of the pandemic, but I'm in a situation where I did not have to go back. So I was able to make the time commitment that other folks were not able to make. But the way the whole system is set up, and I think Missy, we had this conversation in Harrisburg, the way the system is set up, it's hard for you to find qualified people that not just want to run, but are able to run. And again, there's so many things, the way the system is set up, this sort of political machine that, I don't know that there's one set answer. Obviously, a lot of things would have to change in order for people to be able to make the commitment.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And you recognized my finger going
I
up.
did.
So I was just trying it out. So we'll go to Jill, who can reflect on this question as well, even though you already gave us quite a few nuggets about how to be helpful. Just to add a little bit to that, please.
Yeah, I think basically, we need to encourage other women, and we need to, even when Alex called me and she said, I had heard that she was thinking about it. And she had a lot of, oh, I don't know about this, and I don't know. And I said, no, it's you absolutely need to run, and you're running for the right reasons. And none of us is guaranteed a win in this. It takes a lot of courage to run. And I said, the only thing I could do at that point was encourage her. And I said, don't, and I think even in our conversation, Alex, you said, well, I'm just this, or I'm just that. And I said, and I got that a lot too, because I was probably the only one on this whole call. I was a stay-at-home mom for 10 years. And then I went, and when my son was in 3rd grade, my youngest of 4 boys, so I have 4 sons, and it was the nature of my husband's work. He was in the military, and then he ran nuclear power plants, and I gave up my career, and I got involved in everything under the sun. So yes, I wasn't getting paid, but I was running everything. And I had to constantly battle that. So we need to encourage women.
Thank you. And you hit on something, the unpaid work that you have done. You have 4 sons. We need those 4 sons from a mother like you, who's going to be our ally in this fight. So it's critical we have our women talking to our young men, all men really, and being that example of saying, you can do this and I can do this. I've done this at home, and now I'm going to go out and do this. So the more variety we have in who are we representing you in office, the more normal and natural it'll be not to question you, like, oh, where were you for the 10 years, that nonsense. But thank you so much, Jill. So we'll go to Nancy next.
I'm going to pass my time off to Rochelle. I haven't heard her say much for a little while.
Thank you, Representative. I thought I was talking too much.
No, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I want to say that what I thought was helpful for me, well, I ran for election before. I ran for Norristown Council before. That was a while ago, so the experience is very different today. But I think what I learned when we went to Harrisburg was that, you know, my campaign was a little bit more out there, ahead of a lot of people. So my advice or my suggestions around, you know, encouraging women or making sure that women are encouraged to run for office is to really listen to them, to share your ideas. What I did was I actually didn't just share and talk. When there was a woman that was running for office in Delco, my girlfriend, she was running, Gina Hackett, for the 164th. Instead of just talking or listening to her or praying for her or whatever, I just did stuff. Like I gave her somebody to use to get her headshot taken. I, you know, helped her, did a fundraiser for her, like just did things, and just really showed by action my support instead of, you know, well, what do you need? You know, people that are running for office, sometimes we don't know what we need. And that was the biggest thing for me, where everyone's like, oh, I want to help. I want to help. And I couldn't really give them a specific task of how to help. But I was very grateful for the help or the suggestion of help. But I would like to know, you know, things to do. I needed a mailing. I need, you know, one of my friends right here on this call helped me with that. So, I mean, there were just specific things. And I think just completing a task for another woman, helping them out with a task really goes very far.
Well, that's wonderful. That's very concrete advice. Thank you so much. You know, always asking how to help and making the candidate think amongst 10 other things they're thinking about. Just doing it is actually exactly what we need. So having been that candidate, I can tell you, I would have loved people to just step up and say, I see you need this in the corner, the clothes fixed or something, and just do it. So thank you. We'll go, I think Missy is the last one. Sorry again, I didn't want to make you last to answer the question, but please go ahead.
No worries at all. So I was only asked to run. It was the very end of February. So at the time when they asked me, they didn't know that I had to quit my job. So it was an initial shock, like, oh gosh, good enough. Can I make this work? Sit down with my children, sit down with my husband, decide how to possibly make it work. Decided that I would be in, called, and then found out, well, now you have to quit your job. So then it was back to the drawing board. How can I make up the difference in salary? I have 4 children to, you know, to take care of, and a home and cars and whatnot. So for me, I think that it is, you know, I jumped in and immediately people started saying everything that I was supposed to have already done, everything that they expected of me. And I'm saying I've had 3 seconds to think about this, and already I've jumped in because I know that I needed to jump in. But it has also been painstakingly difficult with my children, working 16 hours a day and trying to find that balance. So I think that trying to understand that a candidate can only put in so much time and needs time to breathe is very important. So I think taking, especially with women and families, that's going to be a very important factor, is giving them the understanding that it's okay to have dinner with my children. It's okay to go and go with them before bed. So that's my guidance.
Excellent point, because we tend to work 24/7 and put all this on the burner, because side burner, because we want to, you know, make sure everybody thinks we're serious and we're working hard. But no, please do. I think taking time for yourself, and you know, elections can come and go, but your family's forever. And your children will remember whether you were there for them for that concert or that game, or it makes a difference. So advice is, don't feel guilty to take time off and tell your campaign, this is who I am, my children need me, and I'm going to do this. Or if your mother needs you, or something else personal that you have. So thank you for that. We'll go on to the next question, Nancy, since you gave time to Rochelle, and we'll start with you. And that question is, what long and short-term issues confront women serving in public office, And how should we address these issues? It's a good question for you.
All right, I'm going to give you the old-fashioned answer first. I have a husband that was used to having his meals cooked 6 days a week. And when you're in session at Harrisburg, that's not happening. So when I first started going into session in Harrisburg, I would go crazy, make all these meals and put it in the fridge and put it in the freezer, and then feel guilty for the next 3 or 4 days. And so I don't do that anymore. Because I'm too busy. I'm a state representative. Okay. It's like DoorDash, buddy. And I was a little, nervous about how that transition was going to go. But apparently he still lives here, so everything went fine. And then, we spend so much time wastefully in Harrisburg because of what our people across the aisle are wasting our time on bills that will get up to the governor and get vetoed. And they all know it's going to happen. So, I mean, we have June coming up. That's budget month. Okay. And they're going to try and put all kinds of other crap in there. Okay. So that we can't address the budget. And we need to address the budget. It's a very complicated procedure. So you just got to take things one day at a time and understand that, in the short term, it's going to take time for your families to get adjusted to your new roles. But in the long term, it's going to be worth every minute.
Harold, thank you. We shall go to, let's see, I'm trying to rotate in my head who I should go to. We'll go to Alex up in the corner, on my corner, and have her answer long and short-term issues that confront women serving. And what your thoughts are, even though I know you're not in office yet, but you've served in other capacities and other things and faced some of these issues.
Yes. So short term, I guess, like right now, campaigning, it is the family issues that sort of we all face, logistics. Luckily, my husband is the cook in the family, so that I don't have that issue. So that's kind of nice because it's, last night I had events. I was at the rally in Norristown, and then I had an event to get to at 7. And so I had 20 minutes and, I'm running in the door and he's heating up some food for me so I can eat it and go. So super supportive family. My daughter is in middle school. She didn't know that I went to the rally. She's very overprotective. So I told her I was going to an event last night. So long term, we joke, what we do need to prepare if you win kind of thing. And I tell him not to jinx or, let's deal with that down the line. But I assume it will be a major adjustment in a sense. But luckily, I think my family's pretty self-sufficient. So I think I would have more of an adjustment than they do.
Okay, and this time we'll go to Missy, so she's not last in the queue, to answer the question, which is long-term and short-term issues. What long-term and short-term issues confront women serving in public office? You're muted. Yeah, there we go.
Sorry. So again, I'm going back to the fact that I am a mother, and I feel like many women that are in this position are mothers. I have 2 teenage daughters who are completely self-sufficient at this point, but I also have twin 8-year-olds, and they need mom. My one daughter is perfectly fine staying home when I go out. My other daughter has come to more Democratic meetings than I can count at this point. She is with me knocking on doors almost daily. She has come to rallies. She was actually at the rally that I was in Abington last week. She will not leave my side, and I have to find a way, even though it's a little more difficult for me, to bring her along with me. It is important that we show the future generation how important it is to step up and how it really does affect the future by the things that we do today. So trying to make that balance is tough, but
very common problem we all face, many of us face. We'll go to Rochelle and then we'll go to Jill to round us out.
I already answered this question, didn't I? You want me to answer again?
Did you answer that? I've lost
That
count.
was,
So
that was
we'll
number
go on.
one.
Okay, we'll go on to Jill. Jill then.
So when I decided to run for state rep, that was the last time I ran. My husband was the one who actually encouraged me to do it. And he said, you know, this is your time. I was going to finish up with school board. My mom had just passed away. I was having a very difficult time with that. And he said, you know, this is your time to do it. The boys are all raised and you should go do it. So he was very supportive. I had no intention of running for state senate, no intention of running again. And as a result, I told my siblings that I would be the caretaker for my 89-year-old father. And he could come live with me after my mom died. The shuffling around to 4 different homes, the siblings was not working. And we had the best setup with our housing situation. My husband worked his job. He was able to work completely remotely. So we were going to be able to make it work. When I decided to made the decision, and again, like many of you, I was approached several times. Just think about it. And at first I was like, oh, I have to take care of my dad. And I was upset that I couldn't do it because I really did believe I was the best candidate and our best chance to flip it. And I didn't even discuss it with my husband because I felt I couldn't ask him to then pick up the slack. It was my father. And he actually said to me, oh, what do you mean? I heard you tell them you're not doing it. He goes, you didn't even discuss it with me. And I said, well, and he said, Jill, I will absolutely take care of your father and pick up the slack. He said, this is your time. You can win. You can do this. And I said, well, what happens if I win? What am I going to do? He goes, oh, honey, if you win, I'm retiring. He's like, he goes, I'm retiring 2 years anyway. He goes, I'll just retire a year early. You don't worry about it. So I've been very, very fortunate that I have complete support, except my husband does not cook.
Okay, listen, you can't have everything. Right?
That's right.
You're taking care of your dad. That's a huge thing. And clearly the trust building has occurred amongst family members that allows this to happen. Doesn't happen overnight. So you're very lucky. And I'm so glad that you have such a wonderful husband. So the next question is really about to previous candidates, myself, Jill, who just answered some of it, and Nancy. And I'll start with myself. What are the top 3 lessons learned you want to share with other women candidates? Okay, so I'll go first. Raise money. So I can't stress that enough. Build those relationships. Don't be shy. Ask people for help. Create the networks, go into your Rolodex, ask everybody, your teacher from high school, your whoever, your coach, your children's friends. If you can't be shy, I found that to be the hardest part, is raising money. And, I won the primary, but I didn't win the general for multiple reasons, but one of them was money. I didn't have enough money to match the Republicans who had a lot more money and were doing negative ads and all of these things. And I had no way to answer back to that. So it's critical. So number 1 is ask for money. Don't be shy. You are good and you deserve it, and people should invest in you. So feel confident about asking people because you believe in yourself. The second thing is to have that kitchen cabinet who will tell you the truth, not people who, want to make you feel good, so they don't want to shake your confidence and say something that's negative that you heard or you said or you did. I have that cabinet with my 2 daughters and my husband and some close friends, and I ask them, tell me the truth. Like my husband will very diplomatically couch and tell me, when you talk to that reporter, what they wrote later, you could have headed off if you had started with that, what they headed you off with, right? So you start with that, so they don't have any place to go. They'll go with what you're saying. So for example, they asked me something about being a candidate for lieutenant governor, and they sort of used that as a way to say, oh, that's why she doesn't like X, Y, and Z. And if I had started off with that and said, I ran so nowhere is my answer predicated on that fact. That would have taken care of that. So that's listening to your kitchen cabinet and taking the criticism and constructive criticism well. And the third thing I think all of you have touched on, and I think Missy did that, is creating space for you to find yourself again, to normalize, to recalibrate, to kind of love yourself a little bit, because campaigns are tough. People say all these things. Children, preparing your children to make sure they don't hear things that are negative. All of those things come. So you need a space to go in, pamper yourself, take care of yourself, cut everybody out, go into a silent room, recalibrate and re-energize so you can meet the challenges. So those are my 3 things that I would say. Maybe we'll go to Nancy to see what she might have to add, or same or different.
I just want to remind everybody, Mina, that you ran for a statewide race. Tons of money, tons of traveling, tons of territory to cover. Okay, so I'm going to take this minute to remind the state representative candidates that district, make sure your messaging matches your district. Okay, you're not going to please everybody, but you need to please the majority in your district. Okay, and if you have a majority of Democrats in your district, you need to push those Democratic priorities. All right. If you don't live in Center City, don't go near the defunding police kind of stuff. They don't want to hear it, because we have community-based police departments in our districts here. Okay, keep that in mind. It's very, very important. People want to know that you have a good relationship with your police department. And just I think the messaging is number one important. And yes, you need to raise a lot of money. Okay, you need to raise a lot of money, and some people are just sitting there waiting for you to do the ask. I mean, I heard that a number of times when I was doing my phone calls or walking into offices, and I was waiting to see how long it was going to take you to get here, Nan. Okay, and you can always use the guilt factor on your family members. Okay. I got a ton of money out of my brother. So, just let them know that this is real important to you, and you can't do it without the money.
Okay, thank you so much. Very important, the first piece that you talked about, messaging and matching your message while maintaining your values and what your principles are. So thank you for that. We'll go to Jill. Jill has already given us a lot of deep insight. If you have something to add, that would be wonderful, Jill.
Yeah, I think obviously you have to raise money. I was in fundraising, so I worked for the Leukemia Society for a while. Fundraising comes very natural to me. It's not anything that I find difficult. This time around, I will not ask my friends and family, because I did that and I have a base now. But I think the one lesson that I would pass on to people is as the candidate, you can't do it all. I am constantly trying to prove myself, and even in this primary, I'm getting, we can't just elect another stay-at-home mom, and that's something that I've been trying to fight for years and years and years. And the fact that they're using that, and people in this party who know me are using that is really disappointing. But that's what it is, and I can work 20 hours a day, and if that's how people want to view it, that's how they want to view it. But I'm going to learn this time around. I will knock doors. I love knocking doors, but if it's too hot, I'm going to stop. I literally got heat exhaustion when I started in July, a couple of years ago, because I was going to knock and I was going to be the only one who did it. And I had a mask on and it was hot. And so my husband always reminds me that, you're the candidate and you have to surround yourself with people and campaign managers. You can't do it all. But in the end, you're the boss, you're the candidate. And messaging will be something that I will be closer. I hope I can be more assertive about the messaging that works for my district. I feel that, and a lot of us felt this, I think, that if we spoke to other candidates who ran in other areas, that the message was put upon us instead of us knowing what that message was for our district. And in the end, and some of that we can't control, but in the end, I think, that kind of hurt us. So this time I'm going to be a little bit more assertive with like mail and that kind of stuff. I'm not going to be, every picture of me with my 4 sons, as handsome as they are, and as much as I love them. We need to kind of get away from that, and I'm going to put my foot down. So it's just, those are the things you learn.
Good, wonderful. Assertive in a way that you can get your way. So I just want to have a quick program note to talk to Ann Montgomery that we are at the 8 o'clock hour. Is it okay? We have one more question, and we were going to ask our new candidates who are running for the first time. May I go ahead and do that, or are we at a hard stop?
Please go ahead. We end at 8:30.
Okay, very good. So the next question is for Rochelle, Alex, and Missy. What is the most surprising lesson learned so far? What do you wish you knew prior to running that would have helped you prepare? We'll start with Rochelle.
The most surprising, I think, for me, I'm just going to be very honest, the amount of people that felt like I needed to sort of get their approval about things. For me, I'm very independent. I work very independently, and I'm kind of seen as the get her done person. And then I realized that I was involved in this structure of where I had to get approval of like committee people, and it was a very emotional time. I have never been involved in anything like this, and I ran for council. And when I ran for council, I was the area leader. I mean, the area 10. I was all of that, whatever it was. That's what we were. So I'm saying that the most surprising thing that I learned was how many people not only had to get approval from, but wanted to give their input on what you were doing, what my race was about, what was I doing. And I'm not usually I usually don't ask permission. So it was very difficult that I was like, put your brakes on. People asked me to, put brakes on, and wanted to question me about all these things. And it was just fascinating to me.
So that's an important lesson, being a strong woman and having your own strategic plan sometimes throws people off because it's all about control and power. So you are actually kind of nipping at that. So that makes people uncomfortable, and they like to probably so I think all of us on this call have at some point in some form faced when people don't like the fact that you are comfortable in your power and so not asking permission. So glad that's a lesson learned for all of us. How to manage that is really the key, right? How do you make the other person feel that I heard you, I listened to you, I incorporated maybe a tiny 0.001% of what you said, but I incorporated it. So there you go. We're all together working cooperatively. So it's a skill. When you've had so long to push forward, you forget that. But I think that's in politics, people are always looking to be stroked to get you something. So I mean, good lesson and good thing to remember. Missy, anything that you can add to what you found to be surprising?
So having never been in the real campaign world prior to this, I have found that you are going to get 8 million opinions from 8 million people, and they're all going to be the polar opposite. So, HDCC is going to say something, and then MCDC is going to say something, and then your committee is going to say something, and none of them necessarily align. They all have the same goal, but totally different ways of getting there. So I have found that at some point I had to kind of say, at the end of the day, this is my name, this is my race, and I will have to run it the way that I'm comfortable with. I'm not going to do things that I don't believe in or don't agree with or wouldn't do otherwise, just to appease other people. One of the other surprises is, as Nancy was saying, with the phone calls and people saying, hey, we were just waiting for you to call. It's amazing how many people feel that you should already have their phone number. Because let me tell you, I don't have that magic phone book. I'm still trying to get it. I know, gosh, love Tanya. I've reached out to her with some requests to connect me with people on that end. But there is no magic phone book that I've received yet. So if another woman supporting woman, if you have those phone numbers of people that are just waiting for those, give them to the candidates and let us, get a little edge up. I have people working at my finance people. I'm like, can you try and find these people in Vote Builder and see if their phone number is accurate? It's slim pickings in Vote Builder. So, that would be another point that I would like to make. If anybody can help anybody else out, phone number of somebody in your district, in your area that might be willing to help or care, slip that phone number past.
That's actually very good advice. People are very careful about guarding their sources of fundraising and all of that. But I think just showcasing to a donor that you did something for me, I'm not doing anything right now. Here's my friend who's running. She's great. Could you do that? It makes the donor sit up and say, this is a person who's willing to reach out and help someone. So remember to mention that, thank you for helping me in the past. This is the person who's running now. It makes you look good. So we'll go to Alex to round us off on what her most surprising thing has been so far running for office.
I have to say that both Rochelle and Missy took some of my answers. They were on my list. So I guess for me, I guess it kind of boils down to my most surprising thing, I guess, is ego, and not one particular gender, really. Well, maybe kind of. I said after my first couple weeks, I sort of felt like there was a little bit of drama that I was not anticipating, and I didn't know the protocols, or and not everyone is that way. Most people that were very helpful and friendly, but there definitely seems to be a protocol or some kind of system that is in place. Sometimes I call it the political machine, that you have to feed constantly. And so that was very surprising to me, but it is what it is.
Thank you. That was if somebody's watching this, they can take notes, I think, on all the points all of you have made, and they could come up with a roster of things they can check off. It'd be very helpful, I think. It's almost like campaign training 101, sharing your experience. So thank you for that. I just want to check with Ann Montgomery if Devin Rankin from Emily's List is here yet.
She is not here yet.
Okay, so we will continue with, we've done all our questions. We've stayed in time. I'm so proud of all of you and myself for, going through and staying, watching the clock. Now is, while we're waiting for Devin, we'll take some questions from the audience, if there are any, and Anne will feed those to us, I gather.
So I'm going to invite everyone in the audience, if you would like to submit a question, please go ahead and do that in the chat. And since I'm off mute, I'm going to go ahead and submit one. So I would love to ask our candidates to talk about, they've touched on so much already, but let's talk about your number one goal. I know you're going to talk about your last three, but what's your number one goal, and how can you achieve that with your background, and why is that unique in your specific race?
Okay, so number one goal, why you're best suited for that in your race, right? Okay, so we will start with, let's go to Nancy.
I thought this was just for candidates. That
Oh,
question.
we don't consider you a candidate because you're running for re-election? I guess not. Let's go to.
I mean, my number one goal is to get reelected.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, I'm all done.
You're all done. Okay, we'll go to Jill.
So are you talking about like a legislative goal or are you talking about, is that?
And what was your
Yes,
question?
let's make that a legislative goal. So Nancy does get to answer because she is a current legislator, and I'm sure there's plenty of things that she would love to be able to get done in Harrisburg, but for one reason or another, given the incredible intransigence of the majority, she can't get done.
Yeah, so let me explain to you something, Anne. The first thing I was told in Harrisburg, because this was the only seat that flipped from red to blue in the entire state of Pennsylvania, was that I was not going to get any bills through. I would be lucky if I could put my name as a co-sponsor. I can't even get a road named this first term. Okay, so my goal is to get reelected, and then I can start doing these things because they promised to only punish me for my first term. Now, these are the children that we're dealing with in Harrisburg. So just keep that in mind. It's not going to be easy on you, but you always get to come home to your own district where all the action is really happening.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And I know, and congratulations again for being that red to blue in 2020. We were very, very thrilled to have you do that. Jill?
So obviously, yeah, the number one goal is to get elected, because if we don't have somewhat of a majority, or at the very, very least a veto proof majority, we're going to be in deep doo-doo. So obviously it's all going to be a moot point if we don't get somewhat of a majority. I think we're all very, very worried about reproductive rights, and I think all of us would speak to that. But I'm just going to say my legislative priority started out, and probably still would be, around fair education funding and cyber charter reform. I spent 8 years going to Harrisburg, meeting with our legislators, talking about that, because that is the root of everything. I mean, if families are living with high property taxes, and then we can't, the schools are not evenly funded, it's just a vicious circle. I think that everything starts with education. I think we need to address not only fair funding issues, but we need to address what we're teaching our children. There has been a push since the Trump years. We have teachers who can't even talk about the insurrection without being hauled down to the principal's office. So I think that my big thing was fair education funding. And I know legislators who really supported me when I was running. And as soon as my opponent got in there and got elected, first thing she did was co-sponsor their cyber charter bills. And I was on a meeting with her, with the Pennsylvania School Board Association, and I said, good for you that you co-sponsor that. What are you going to do now to convince your colleagues to vote for it and bring it for a vote? So, I mean, I guess she thought I'm stupid or naive. I know how Harrisburg works. I've been going up there for 8 years. I do not have any wild dreams that unless we get the majority, we're not going to get anything done.
Well, listen, thank you. And it's a very important issue. So if others want to answer that question, we have a few more questions in the queue. Just that, Missy, did you want to answer that question as well? What it would be your biggest priority and that you want to get done?
So yeah, basically reiterating what Nancy and Jill have already said, I'm not a one issue ticket. I don't believe there is one issue that, for me, I'm going to put out fire on people before I put out fire on a building. So it is going to be the human rights, the women's rights, the reproductive, the LGBTQ plus. Those are going to be issues that I am going to be a strong advocate for and on behalf of. However, that it really will depend on my community. At the end of the day, it's not what matters most to me. It's what matters most to my community that I'm representing. So until I have all of those real conversations that I've been having at doors with a much larger scale of my community, I can't give you a definitive on this is going to be my biggest fight in Harrisburg. Again, I know sure enough from working in it that nothing's getting done until we flip this house. So we're going to keep on campaigning and keep on getting these votes and make it happen come November.
Wonderful. Thank you. We have to win the majority. Rochelle, did you want to answer that question?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I think it's pretty difficult to answer the question. I am running for the 54th. It's the brand new House seat. It consists of Norristown, Plymouth, and Conshohocken. There couldn't be a more diverse district. When you cross over from Norristown to Conshohocken, they're both, the only thing that they have in common is they're river towns. But then, you know, Plymouth is in the inside with no real main street. It's very different. And I have to be very careful because I'm considered a real Norristonian. I'm considered to really understand the problems and issues of Norristown. When the people in Conshohocken and Plymouth, they don't really want to be, number one, be associated with our schools or our issues. And number two, they think they're very different. And so I've been trying to find commonality. I've been trying to find ways to make sure that all three areas and communities in my district understand that I know how to address the issues in all three areas, whether it be issues related to police and crime in Norristown, whether it be issues related to, you know, supporting House Bill or Senate Bill 1135, that, you know, it's really something that's nixable. This hasn't been done anywhere. And the House Bill really does create support for individuals that need help to do home repairs. That's really something that Norristown needs. That's something I need to get on. Then I also have to address issues of infrastructure in Conshohocken and issues of density in Conshohocken. Conshohocken is about to get 4,000 new people in the next 5 years. That not only impacts infrastructure, but housing, density, education. They just built a brand new school. I'm going to the brand new school tomorrow. I'm really excited to go to Colonial's brand new school. But it also affects public transportation. That's already the busiest stop. That's why we built a 600-car garage there. So all the issues are different. So I'm really trying to juggle, not showing I'm doing too much for Norristown, but then understanding the issues of Conshohocken and how, you know, Plymouth meeting, they basically want to appear that they don't have any issues, but I have to find things to improve how good they and great they already are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So not only does it make sense, actually Plymouth can share their best practices with Conchi and Norristown, and you can actually make them help you talk about things that worked, what worked, what didn't work. But yes, being intersectional in your role with three very different regions in your district is a challenge, but I am sure you're up to it because your answer just told me you are. So, and we will finish off with, I think I haven't asked Alex this, right, Alex? Yeah, go ahead.
As soon as I unmute myself. Yes, I have personally a laundry list of legislative items that I would love to have be answered. And I really think that part of the problem, and Nancy alluded to it and has, you know, experienced it firsthand, is that, you know, the issues that they're talking about in Harrisburg are not the issues that people are dealing with every day and that they've sent people to Harrisburg to fix. But somehow there's a disconnect between here and Harrisburg. So one of my top three is the environment, is infrastructure. We've had all kinds of issues in our district from Hurricane Ida, as a lot of people in Montgomery County still have. So that's a huge one, and the environment has always been my passion. So I'm looking forward to addressing a lot of that.
Okay, well, thank you. We have a question that Tanya has asked. What's one out of the box tactic you plan to use in your campaign to win the seat? So this is about this current race that you're in. What tactic you might use to win your seat? Who volunteers to go first? And share your secret that we can all emulate. Let's see. No one is volunteering these. Yeah, there's Missy. Go for it.
I don't know how out of the box it truly is, but I have found that being completely boldly honest at doors, telling people that in all reality, I hate politics. I want nothing to do with today's world of politics, that I really want to see a change. And I do not agree with the divisiveness. I do not agree with the stuff that we're seeing, and that I don't want to be a politician. I am not trying to get elected for a title or power or anything else. That I literally just want to get up there to help people. That I'm not going to make empty promises to people. I'm not going to claim that I can make magic happen if you elect me, because the reality is that's not true. So people have laughed when I first make comments at the door, but by the end of the conversation, they truly they say I come across as authentic. They believe what I say. I'm not talking at them for what they want to hear. I'm telling them what's truly happening in the world, and in people seem to respect it. So I don't know how out of the box it is.
Authenticity is undervalued. And I
Yeah.
think you point out that sometimes you're so prepped and managed, and you have your campaign telling you the words to say, and that's not the real you. And sometimes, people can pick that up. So being authentic is critical, I think. So that's a great tool for us. We'll go to Jill for the next thought you might have, an out-of-box way to win your campaign.
Yeah, I plan on just knocking every door I can. And I don't even know if that's out of the box, but my experience has been running last time. Everybody, and I'm going to preface this by saying they were all men, told me doors and dollars, and you got to knock doors, and you got to knock doors. And then I find out that, yeah, they knock doors like 2 hours a week. I mean, I was knocking doors 5 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it just cracks me up that they, it's like, oh, door. So, my out of the box thing is when I say I'm going to knock doors, I really am going to knock doors. And I also, in my last, and I'm going to do it again, I called all 3,000 independents. Did I speak to them? Each one of them? No. But I spent hours and hours and hours calling them and having conversations. And that's what you have to do. You have to listen to people. You have to take down that barrier. And whether they're Republicans or Democrats, you have to try to listen. And most people are reasonable. Remember, 80% of us do not want to overturn Roe v. Wade. 80% of us all want the same thing: good schools for our kids, safe roads to drive on, and no potholes. I mean, it's just getting to those people. And like Missy said, kind of taking down that barrier. I, by nature, love politics. I don't know if it's even love politics, but I am, as you can see, a very, very social person. And, I'm still very excited. My son got married Friday night, and I'm really excited about it. And when I was knocking doors today, it came up about, oh, is this your family? Because it's on the flyer. And I'm like at this woman's house, and I'm showing her my son's wedding picture, and she's like all excited, and we're talking about it. And in the back of my head, I'm hearing my campaign manager saying, can't spend too much time at the doors, 2 minutes and move on. And I'm like, well, I'm just not going to tell her.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. And how you balance, the connection you make and make it about your race. That's a skill, right? Yes. Thank you. And I just want to acknowledge that we have behind Missy 2 very important people. So I wanted to say hello to our future legislators. You're back there. I don't know your names, but your mom is great. And thank you for being there and supporting your mom, because she's going to win. And that's what we're doing here today, is trying to make sure we're helpful to your mother. We'll go to Rochelle now to answer what is our out-of-box tactic.
Out of the box tactics. So I can't give you all my secrets on here. But I will say I've used a couple out of the box tactics in running other people's races over the years. And I always call it, I go where no man will go. And usually I pick certain areas within, well, I just used to run in Norristown before. So, but I've just found some small areas within Conshohocken and within Plymouth that not a lot of people know about. I call it no man's land. And, I'm bold enough, I'm strong enough to go into those, some of those areas. And that's in Norristown as well. That's how I was successful in a lot of other campaigns. So I'm going where no man would go. Some of those areas to knock doors that people have been forgotten. And, look at you totally surprised when you walk up to the door. You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry. Yeah.
It's
So I so hear you, because that is exactly what I did. I went to places and went to spaces that get overlooked and people think there are no votes there, and so don't bother going there. And it just makes a world of difference to acknowledge people and ask for their vote and ask for their support. And they're, especially those who have been overlooked and left behind, are ecstatic to be helpful. So I think that's a lesson learned for all of us, to knock those doors and go to those spaces that you think are not going to yield anything for you, because we're all humans and we all have something to offer. So thank you for that, Rochelle. And we will go to Alex.
There we go. I don't know, as this is my first campaign, I don't have any tricks of the trade. But I have been speaking with people that have been giving me advice. And one of the things that has come up again is this listening at the door, rather than going in and, giving them your spiel, but to meet them where they are and to be able to connect with them over shared values. So that is my hope, that will, be a productive. It'll help with messaging. It'll help me learn more about the district. And that's the thought.
That's a very good, listening is a skill building exercise, because we are in such campaign mode. We want to tell everybody what we're thinking, how we're going to fix everything. And then we're not listening to what people need fixed, what they're thinking. So that's very good advice. And we'll round it out with Nancy, who is our most experienced, a person who has won state legislative office and is running again. So Nancy, your wisdom, please.
Well, I don't think I have any tricks up my sleeves, really, but I always stressed when I was running that empathy and the ability to listen, okay, are two most important things a candidate on this ticket can have. And so the more you listen, the more you're going to hear, the more they're going to understand that they're being heard, and how important it is that you will try to do everything you can to help people. But and I always told them, I'm not going to blow smoke up your Yahoo, okay? I'm going to tell it like it is. And I can try to tell you all the nice things I want to do for you. But until we flip this house, it's not going to happen.
Okay.
We can help you at the district level with a whole ton of things, because we have those secret phone numbers. Okay. But, you have to be realistic with people with what's going to happen at the house.
Right. Well, thank you. And then, we can also ask them to speak to their neighbors in the next district, which is up for something, and they can, trusted messengers at the doors can do something for the next district, which is being challenged. So thank you for that. We have a question. We're kind of coming to the end. We have a question from Jerome Campbell. And this is, when it comes to your experience in the professional world, what one thing would you work to codify legislatively to create protections for professional women, either discrimination, maternal support, or greater accountability for issues like sexual harassment? That's a great question.
Can I give you one quick answer on that?
Yeah.
There's a bill that's been languishing in a drawer for 20 years. Did you know that it's still legal if you're interviewing a woman for a job to ask what her marital status is?
In Pennsylvania.
In Pennsylvania.
Outrageous. All right. Yeah. So we got one.
So that's the one bill that I would rip out of that drawer and fight like hell to get passed, because it shouldn't be on there. Okay, it's like fighting LGBTQ plus rights
That's right.
for over 20 years. And we had to do them as individual townships and boroughs and cities,
Mm,
you know, just to get that.
yeah, you're right. Yeah,
So, yeah.
that's an important one. Anybody else about what would you like to codify legislatively to create protections in any area that it resonates with you? Let's see. Jill?
I would say that we need to do something with more family medical leave. I think that is, one of the things that we really need to do. And it's interesting because the first thing I did as an intern and before I got the job with the governor's office years ago in the 80s was family medical leave. And I was going to all the hearings and writing up the talking points. And what was that in the mid 80s? And we haven't come that much further.
Yeah, well, thank you. I know you have your work cut out for you. Rochelle, did you have something you specifically wanted to get codified?
Yeah, so I've been hearing a lot of things on the doors, but I have 3 things I just wanted to mention. I would like to codify paid maternity and paternity leave. I found a number of people, fathers that were at home with their young children while I was knocking on doors. I can only talk to you for a second because my daughter's asleep and he's there by himself. His wife is at work. But I'd also like to codify dedicated funding for period justice. I think that period poverty is a real issue, especially in communities like Norristown, where truancy is, very significant and very impactful around a number of things, but mostly education and funding. And if children are truant for reasons that are not because they're truant because they don't have period supplies. That's not truancy. That's poverty, period. So that needs to be addressed and viewed a very different way. But if that child is truant because they are in poverty and we're treating it in that manner, we're sending some very scary messages. And then we're marking them as truant. They're going before magisterial district justices for things for instances that are totally unrelated to, it's generational poverty. It has nothing to do with not being able to go to school or not wanting to go to school. And truancy here is a huge issue. So, and I've been behind that with Weed and Seed and with all the other things I've been working on, but that would be something that I would like to codify. I know I have a couple of other things that dedicated funding.
Yep, thank you for that. That's a very critical one. And I know there's different people working on different aspects of that, including with incarcerated women. So we're at the end of our program. We've had a great time. Everybody's given us great answers. We're gonna go around in a round robin quickly, like a 1-minute closing statement from each one of you. And we will start with Nancy Guest.
Thank you, because my dog's going crazy here. Okay. So if he starts barking, I'm shutting up. I just want to thank everyone for putting this together and everyone that came on to this meeting. It's all been very helpful.
Well, thank you, Nancy. That was real solid advice, and make sure you use it because she's a fountain of wisdom here. We will go to.
If you don't mind, I'm gonna cut off right now. Okay.
No problem. Take care of your dog.
I don't want this little terrier peeing on my legs. All right.
No, go for it. Take him out. Take your dog out, and have a great evening. And thank you for joining us. And good luck. Next, we will go to Missy Serrato to do her final 1 minute.
Again, reiterating, thank you all so much for being here. I have had the pleasure of meeting so many of you, and there are so many of you that are new faces who I hopefully will get to meet in the future. I know that everyone has an email chain. If we can exchange contact information so that we can reach out and speak to one another in the future, I think that would be very helpful. There's a lot of guidance that can be given and a lot of support that can be had. So I think that would be wonderful if we can all exchange our information and share that way.
Thank you. Again, a connection, networking, all very critical. We'll go to Alex Wisser next for her closing statement?
Yes. Thanks again for putting this program together. It was great to be able to talk with everyone and know that we're all in the same boat and experiencing the same things. And but those that have gone before us can give us great advice, and it's just truly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And we'll go to Rochelle.
Yes, I agree. This was very encouraging for me, very timely for me. And I appreciate being around such strong, assertive women. And I just feel like it's very important. There are 9 women of color in the House in the region where I am. And if I get elected, I'll be number 10. I'll be the first African-American female to come from Montgomery County to the House of Representatives. And I just am really excited about the opportunity to even have this chance to run for this office. So thank you all for all your support, your encouragement, and all the words. I took lots of notes. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, and wish you the very best of luck. And we'll close out with Jill with her final words.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for this. I think, it was it feels like a support session, support group. And I think I really needed that today. So thank you so much.
All right. And so I want to thank all of you, our panelists, our guests who are here, our organizers, our coordinators, Ann Montgomery, who's in the back, helping put this together. I want to, thank everyone. Please talk to your neighbors who are in your communities to vote for these women that you just met. They need your help. They can, just a few days left. Make sure that people, if they have a mail-in ballot, they fill it and send it back in. 8 p.m. on May 17th is the last time they can get their ballot in. If you're voting in person, make sure you're informed and you're making the choices that support your needs and your community. And it didn't get to all the questions. I apologize because we ran out of time. I know Dr. Bernadine had a question about, how are they going to work in this environment? But we kind of answered that throughout, I think. So I hope your question was answered. But again, thanks. Good luck. May 17th is around the corner, and we hope to have another session where we can all talk about your victories. So take care and have a wonderful evening.